All right, this is the reading of Meditation 110, written this day, the third day of June, originally on June 2004, commemorated 10 years later. And this is pages 184 through 186 in Being and Learning, Chapter 7. When we say that in her preparation the sage is waiting, we are indicating her reception of the beckoning of language, her response to the appearance of the ineffable. To wait is to receive the message, to be released into the mysterious, to hear the wisdom of silence. To be released into the open region through meditative practice is to be held out to the nothing, to take the questioning stand before the profound and unfathomable abyss, to see the hidden truth of concealment as the preserving shelter of possibility, to hear the conservation of the revolutionary not yet. With the practice of meditation, the sage hears the keynote of wu-yi-wu and is attuned by the deepest mystery of the deep twofold play. To be attuned to the deepest mystery is to hear the intonement of the enchanting region that silently sounds the harmony of the openness that conserves peace and freedom. As Heraclitus writes, quote, "The harmony past knowing sounds more deeply than the known." The harmony past knowing sounds more deeply than the known. To be attuned to this deepest mystery is to hear the beckoning of language and thereby released to the appearance of the ineffable, the appearance of the phenomena which silences and causes one to heed, the unnameable. To be silenced is to be prepared for the improvisational play of poetic dialogue. Quote, "Abstaining from speech marks him who is obeying the spontaneity of his nature." That's from Lao Tzu, Tao Te Ching. To heed the unnameable is to remain released into letting be, to be reposed. Meditation is thus the waiting that releases the learner into the freedom of steadfast openness. To practice meditation is to be released into openness. Waiting is the preparation for receiving the open, the preparation for releasement. This is why Heidegger's scholar says, quote, "Openness itself would be that for which we could do nothing but wait." And as a follow-up, the teacher declares that waiting releases into openness. Here, openness designates the sheltering of the open region, the binding of the boundless boundary, the ultimate horizon that is being and the being's processual unfolding. Thus, the scientist, in Heidegger's dialogue, responds, quote, "But openness itself is that which regions." And the teacher adds, "into which we are released by way of waiting when we think." To which the scientist replies, quote, "Then thinking would be coming into nearness of distance." Meditative thinking is the waiting that releases the learner into the openness that is being's processual unfolding. To wait, to meditate, is to prepare for the leap into learning, the purposeful wandering carried forward by poetic dialogue, which carries us along the boundless boundary of being's sheltering. Being's sheltering is the openness that conserves revolutionary possibility, that spares, frees, the actuality of natality, of building, making, constructing, and creating. To wait, to meditate, is to be carried into the profound and unfathomable depth of this revolutionary possibility, and to emerge capable of conveying the existence of this abyss, this gap that preserves the actuality of the manifold and conserves the space of mutual exchange, the distance that differentiates the many and yet enjoins them as a one. This coming into the nearness of distance identifies meditative thinking's passing over into the heart of the gap between past and future, the leap into the truth of appearance, into the excess of presencing that is concealed by the not yet, sheltered by the actuality of possibility. To come into the nearness of distance is to be seized by or acted upon openness itself. Thus, with the practice of meditation, the learner practices or prepares himself to be acted upon by the other, to be seized by the shelter of openness. This is the truth of concealment, which preserves the appearance of the ineffable, the silent call of wisdom that is heard in the invocation of the evocative. When this invocation is heeded, the self is estranged from her everyday stand, and she takes up the existent stand outside of herself. To come into the nearness of distance is to receive the message of the gathering directive, which is to be engulfed by the sheltering of openness. To be engulfed by the sheltering of openness is to be emptied. Meditative thinking signifies the emptying of the everyday self and the fulfillment of the learner as the one who is most capable of receiving the other. The emptied everyday self is the one most filled by the other. To be most filled by the other is to be located in the nearness of distance. To be enjoined intersubjectively with an other to whom one is entrusted. Meditative thinking prepares one for entrustment, for the humility of being with others. Meditative thinking identifies the estrangement of the self, the crossing over to the otherness of the I, the not I, or the not yet, that signifies the modality of learning. To learn is to take the leap into the self's other. But this leap happens when the ego submits itself to an other and hands over or entrusts himself to the collective work of building peace. To wander silently within the open region is to be ready and willing to receive the other, and this reception is the hallmark of learning. As we have said, hearing is the originary modality of learning. To wait upon is to receive the other. To receive the other as other is to welcome the visitor as a stranger. The learner practices this welcoming in the silent waiting of meditation. With this silent waiting, the learner empties herself of the desires tied to the comings and goings of everyday life and relinquishes her will to power. That's it. From this day, the 3rd of June, read of this day, 10 years after the original day of writing. Check out my blog, Duarte Being Learning, for some commentary on how this writing connects to the current work that I'm doing. And also, of course, check out the book, Being and Learning, and check out specifically Chapter 7, pages 184 to 186.